Want to say hello to everyone and thank you for coming to our BlackFog webinar. You're going to be hearing from Doug and possibly Nick today. You're going to see all of us at the top of your screen. We're just excited to have you here today. A special hello to all the chamber members who have joined us. If you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to put them in the chat box at the bottom of your screen and we'll handle them as they come on. All right, so next is Doug and Nolan. Sorry, Nolan, I called you Nick.
All good. Happens all the time. Yeah.
Doug and Nolan are going to take over from here.
All right. Thanks, Natalie. And he knew who you were talking about, without a doubt. So, as Natalie said, welcome to today's session with BlackFog and our team at American Laser Comsat. So, glad to have everybody on board. And if you do have questions, comments, please run them through the chat, and Natalie will be monitoring that, and we'll ask them and make it as interactive as we can. So, my name is Doug Luban. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success and Partner Success here at BlackFog. And quick background on myself, 26 years, the Michigan State Police, retired out as a command officer, spent time in organized crime, political corruption, jumped into cybersecurity after I retired, and I have been in cyber for the last 18 years. 10 years as a director of cyber investigations for LoJack for laptops, and I have been with BlackFog since basically it was a concept. And I live up in mid-Michigan, so that is a little bit about me, but I'll hand it over to Nolan for a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll jump into the slide presentation.
Perfect. Thanks, Doug. I'm Nolan, Senior Sales Engineer here on Team BlackFog in my third year with the company. So I have a little bit more technical knowledge for BlackFog specifically. So glad to be on the webinar today. Excited to show you what we have to offer.
All right. Thanks, Nolan. So next slide. So BlackFog, we are a US-founded, US-based endpoint solution. And we have one single goal, and that is to stop the bad guys from getting your data. And we'll kind of explain how the history and the legacy of what's happened with ransomware attacks and what's really made it so critically important that you have this type of a solution in your stack. And that's why we've been partnered with the team from ComSat I think we're going into our fourth year with ComSat. So we are an endpoint solution. We work across all four major operating systems. We work anywhere from cell phones all the way up to servers, so we can protect all of your devices. Really key to understand is that BlackFog's protection resides at the device level, and it's in place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And equally as important, you don't have to do anything, and neither does the team at ComSat. They will monitor the blockings after they've happened, but they don't have to react to them. So that's really key to understand. Our tool goes in, examines every outbound communication. It's set against 30 different rules. Nolan will show you, and we'll get into some of those. But it's done instantly and automatically, which is really powerful these days because the bad guys have gotten so agile on their feet that they are changing their attacks. I can safely say they're changing their attacks weekly. The things that we are seeing on a very regular, daily, weekly basis, the attacks that are coming out are literally extremely concerning, amazing. Obviously, everybody can understand with the advent and the huge uptick of AI-based tools, the bad guys are using them too. So that's another real value add to what BlackFog does is BlackFog, we adapt to those things. We ourselves are AI-based and behavioral-based tool. So we stop the data exfiltration. That's all BlackFog is created for, and that's what we do extremely well. We're the global leaders in it. And I'm a big believer in the KISS theory, keep it simple. And it comes down to that simple fact that if the bad guys can't get your data, they literally will pack up shop and move on to the next person on their attack list. Their attack lists are so inexpensive on the dark web that they don't spend a lot of time. They'll attack you, and BlackFog will stop them from exfiltrating your data. They have no idea what tool is stopping them. It upsets them. They move on to their next victim on their list. And we've been in business actually now. We're going in our 10th year, and we have never had a customer successfully ransomware attacked. So very proud to say that. So We do have several awards. There are some showing up on the screen here, and we've got a couple more awards that we're in the final running for here in the next few months. So we've got some very strong and prestigious, industry acknowledgments and awards. Next screen. So ComSat, as I said here, we've been partnered with ComSat for we're in our 4th year with ComSat, and it's a regional MSP hybrid company based in the general Boston area. And we've had an amazing success run with the team at ComSat and continued to grow with the team at ComSat. So contact information is listed here for Larry Williamson, and then it'll be on the end of the slide as well. Next slide. Ransomware. So I think everybody in this call, I hope everybody in this call is at least aware of what the general ransomware attack vector has looked like and what has changed. That's really, since COVID, ransomware has just gone up exponentially, and it's dominating. The general opinion is that if ransomware was its own political country, it would be, some people say it would be the 3rd largest country in the world. Some people say it would be the 1st largest country in the world. The economic impact that ransomware does. Things that we have seen, I'll share some quick stories and some behavioral stories. The bad guys have literally stopped doing total encryption attacks. All they're doing now is they come into your environment, they take your data, they exfiltrate your data, then they will they'll lock up your system. But now they've got your data. So what they do with your data is they'll extort you, usually 2, 3, 4 layers of extortion. First off, they'll send you a demand saying, hey, we've got your data, and here's some samples. We'll show you, they'll give you sample screenshots so that you can understand that they really do have your data. And you owe us X number of Bitcoin. So then that's phase 1 of the extortion. Phase 2 is going to be where they will literally, the bad guys will go out and attack your clients, your customers, and they'll send them. I've seen some of these letters. They're very earth shattering. They'll say, hey, company X doesn't care about your privacy. We know because we attacked them and we got your information from them. And if you want to protect your information from not going out on the dark web, please send us $8,000 or send us $10,000. They keep it really low from the individuals, but they know that they try to stay within a range where individual people can afford it. So that's the second layer of extortion. Third layer is then they're going to publish everybody's information out on the dark web. They don't care. Sometimes even if you pay them the ransom demand, they're still going to publish your data out on the dark web, which again makes it really powerful to block your data and stop your data from going to the bad guys. Fourth layer of extortion gets really creative, and we've seen some of these where the bad guys attack a large publicly traded company, and then they actually will end up reporting them to the Securities and Exchange Commission or other governmental agencies and say, hey, this company got attacked. We know because we did it. Here's some proofs. And they'll say, well, we see they haven't bothered to report it to you yet. So then the company has to deal with not, staying within compliance. So as everyone can imagine, Russia, China, all the former Russian bloc countries are all the big countries where ransomware attacks are coming out of. There's 195 countries in this world, and there's 110 or 112 that are cooperative with the US. So there's a large number of countries that are not cooperative with the US, and this is where the vast majority of the ransomware attacks come out of. So next slide. So these are some very startling facts from 2024. So this is a summary of 2024 last year. Last year, there was 789 publicly disclosed confirmed attacks. There's 5,200 that were undisclosed. You might ask, how do we know which ones were undisclosed? Well, we monitor the dark web 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We see these ransomware announcements coming out of these gangs, and we see the screenshots and things like that. So that's where we're gathering our information. We are the global leaders in ransomware tracking and in ransomware defense. The average size of the company, I'll be honest with you, the average size of the company really doesn't matter. On a daily basis, we see more companies under 50 employees than we do over 100. It's really crazy that most of the bad guys, they're going to attack anybody they can. The best story I can tell on that is everyone should remember the Target breach, which was quite a few years ago, but the Target breach was the starting point for the Target breach was a two-person heating and cooling shop in the upper New England states. And the bad guys used that heating and cooling shop. They saw an article in a newspaper that said this mom and pop heating and cooling got a contract with the local Target store to provide some HVAC work. The bad guys got into the HVAC companies, the heating and cooling companies, internet, their network, penetrated, sat there for a while, waited to see them do some financial transactions, and that's how they accessed Target, and that's where it all started. So again, a two-person shop that ended up being hundreds of millions of dollars impact to the company as large as Target. So next slide. This slide's pretty indicative. It's actually pretty common sense though. Most of the undisclosed, the top three in the undisclosed is going to be healthcare, government, and education. And all three of those have in common is the fact that for the most part, they're going to be understaffed and under-equipped without question. We see that in the industry. Undisclosed attacks, it's going to carry the other three main targeted industries: manufacturing, services, and technology. Services is going to be like your accounting firms, your law firms, things like that. So next slide. Disclosed variants. So on the left, under the disclosed, here's the high story on this. The ransomware gangs take a lot of pride and they get a lot of street cred in having the most aggressive or the most outlandish attack. So there's a whole underworld to their world, and there's a lot of it's almost like football games or the Super Bowl or things like that. But it's the gangs themselves have a lot of pride in what they do. No one's ever said they're not they're not stupid. They just don't follow society's rules. Is really what it comes down to. But so there's these gangs, they try and have either the most or the largest. So on the disclosed side, Lockbit, Ransom Hub, and Medusa, those are all three individual gangs. They have the top three. On the undisclosed side, it's Lockbit, Ransom Hub, and then a different group called Play. Now, to me, on this slide, probably the most powerful stat is the very bottom little circle bullet there is that 48 new ransomware variants were recorded in 2024. So what a variant is a new breed or brand of a ransomware attack. So almost a new ransomware attack every week of the year in 2024. And that has not slowed down for 2025. Like I said earlier, especially with the advancement of AI, we had a blocking this morning, or one of our hunt team members had a blocking this morning with DeepSeek. We saw where DeepSeek was involved and was trying to take the customer's data to China. So the bad guys are making use of this stuff. So this stat is not going to change. But the scary part is that most traditional defensive solutions, they have to know about what the attack is in order to defend against it, where BlackFog doesn't. We're able to react to things in a much different manner. We'll stop the attack before other tools even are aware of it. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So I think on this one, two major points to cover is that number one on the right, 94%. So 94% of all attacks last year in 2024 involved data exfiltration. What to me is astounding about that is just 2 years ago, we were at 80%. So in 2 years' time, we've gone up a very considerable amount to the point where we're almost all attacks now involve data exfiltration. The average extortion demand from a ransomware attack in 2024 was $5.2 million, and that's just the ransomware demand. The costs of these attacks is just exponential. I mean, we've all seen the articles how these victims have to keep paying and paying and paying. To me, the biggest and most impactful stat that I've ever been aware of is that 6 out of every 10 small to medium businesses that are attacked with ransomware end up going out of business within the first year. That's pretty impactful, 6 out of every 10 SMBs. So next slide. I think I've talked about this pretty well, but BlackFog, we do have an AI and machine learning and definitely automatic portion of our defensive solution. And having that, we've actually been able to show that having this, our type of a defensive solution can significantly lower your impact cost from a breach. Next slide. So this one here, I think I covered it pretty well, but I'll just reinforce it one more time. So the cyber criminals have a lot at stake. This is all they do. This is where they make their money, and it's all about money to them. And what it comes down to is your data equals money to them. They're going to monetize your data. They don't care about anything else. They just want your data because there's so much value to it. They have tremendous returns and payouts from the initial ransomware demand. Low risk of prosecution. I think I covered that earlier. I mean, there's 70 or 80 some countries that don't have a prosecutorial agreement with the United States. And that's where we see the attacks coming from too, folks, is China, Russia, Yemen, Uzbekistan, any of the countries with STAN. It's all the countries that do not cooperate with the United States. So it makes it very, very hard there's no risk. They know that. They know they're not going to seek prosecution. They have nothing to risk because for the most part, they're attacking the United States too. The evolving techniques, I think I've already talked about that. They continue to use AI and social engineering. I saw a really crazy one this morning where a company was attacked. Somehow on social media, the bad guys found out that this is actually a really cool story worth repeating this. The bad guys found out that a lot of employees at this company liked going to this local Chinese restaurant. So the bad guys didn't try and attack the company. It was a large company. They attacked the Chinese restaurant. Then what they did was they actually substituted a fake menu with a icon in it, and it said for menu click here, and then it said, oh, the menu is screwed up, then you have to click here to fix it. Well, when you clicked here to fix it, quote unquote, that's when the malware was downloaded and it went right back into the company. So that's how this company got infiltrated, was literally a menu at a Chinese company that the bad guys found out that the employees like to frequent. So panic and urgency. I mean, I've seen this firsthand from having talked to and met with many people who've been victim of ransomware, before they become a BlackFog customer. And it's life altering. If you've ever talked to anyone that has had a ransomware attack, they will tell you without a question, it's life altering. So the bottom point there, targeting essential services, it goes back to one of the slides a few minutes ago, but healthcare, education, and governmental services. Those three all have a major impact on our worlds when they go down, and they also are the least protected. So next slide, Nolan. I think I've pretty much covered this one. Double, triple extortion, espionage, insider threats. So nation state sponsored. All of them are real, and we see them and stop them every single day. Rising cost of doing nothing is obviously it's all encompassing. It's the ransom demand, the business disruption, your remediation costs, the lawsuits, the governmental fines, cybersecurity insurance. A lot of times you're going to get canceled if you've had an attack, and then also the potential for further attacks. The bad guys are very well known for once they attack you, even if you pay and they say they're not gonna, do anything, they come back and attack you again. There's no honor amongst thieves whatsoever. So next slide. And well, with this, I think I'll hand it over to you, Nolan. This looks like it's your starting point. So,
all right. Perfect. So at this point, we're going to get more into detail about BlackFog specifically, what separates us from traditional, modern, and conventional security solutions, and how we're able to so effectively stop ransomware. So, and fighting back against everything Doug has been talking about does require a new approach. Everything that's been going on with cybersecurity, all of the conventional tools, they're all still very important, having antivirus, firewalls, EDRs, things that are protecting your perimeter, protecting the front door. They're all very important. But now with the evolution of attackers' behaviors, that they're more commonly going after your data, pulling your data out versus the traditional malware or encryption-based attack, it's time to have we respond to that with a new solution, which is ADX. So anti-data exfiltration, really this is all about stopping the unauthorized outbound flow of data from your environment. So we're specifically looking at what's leaving your devices and determining if that is a normal and allowed outbound network transaction or an illegitimate transaction that matches any exfiltration behaviors, attack behaviors. If it looks suspicious in any way, we're going to block it immediately, and we block it automatically. So there's no need for human intervention, nobody monitoring the outbound network traffic 24/7 and responding in real time. The software responds in real time on its own. So it's a set it and forget it style solution that runs in the background, watches the back door, and protects your environment against data exfiltration. Because, like Doug said at the beginning of this webinar, if the attackers cannot get your data, they have nothing of value to use against you, and they're very likely to move on to the next target on their list. So this slide, this is just showing where we're positioned versus more conventional security solutions, where you can see on the left side of the screen, that's where a lot of the modern security implements lie, looking at inbound network traffic and looking at activities happening specifically on the device, the execution of processes, files that live on the system. But nobody's really looking at what's leaving that system. There's kind of the assumption that if it's on the system, it's probably okay and it can leave. But attackers are very good at blending in with legitimate activities and slowly pulling data out that they can then use against you. So that's where BlackFog comes in, looking specifically at the outbound traffic and blocking if it has any suspicious attributes. And we're looking at known bad, reported bad locations. That's a very easy place to start. Better to filter those out before applying any further logic to it. We're looking at screenshot capture tools, keylogger tools, anything monitoring your microphone, webcam, and trying to pull that information out. We're looking for botnets, whether it's trying to infect further systems to be part of an infected network or communicating back to the attacker. We're stopping all of that. Advertising, profiling, data scraping that's happening on legitimate websites. We're clearing out all of the junk happening in the background so the end user gets a much cleaner, faster, and more secure browsing experience. We're looking at unusual port numbers. There's a lot of technical elements, but really the key is there are many attributes that we're using to determine, is this normal traffic that an end user would normally be going about during their day? Or does this look like something that looks like attack behavior or something that could lead to the loss of data? We block that one request when it happens, and we're not shutting down the whole machine. We're not shutting down the network for that user. We're just stopping that request so we're a very non-invasive solution. So your end users really won't notice that we're on the machine, other than that advertisements are going to be blocked. Their web pages may load a little bit more quickly because a lot of the unnecessary background traffic is getting cleared away by BlackFog. But we're a non-invasive solution that's very aggressive against exfiltration, but very gentle against normal activities. We're rarely a source of friction for the end user. And just to show this in action, I'm actually going to switch screens here and pull up a attack scenario both before an infection and then after. So this first example we're going to look at is a phishing example. So we're going to see, if I'm an attacker, I'm going to try to steal some login credentials. And for the first part of this example, this is before BlackFog has been installed. So this is going to show the attack in action uninterrupted. So on the left side of the screen, we have the attacker's device. On the right side of the screen, we have the target. And this attacker is going to try to steal login credentials for a social media site from the target. In this case, it's going to be LinkedIn. And this is very easy for the attacker to do. There are tools out there that are freely available, very well documented, that attackers can use to do attacks like this. It's really as simple as typing in the number 9 on the keyboard to get this website to generate. So you can see, going through the tool, it gives us a link, and that's the link I want to send to my target. Now, normally I would wrap this up in some kind of social engineering message to try to persuade them to click on the link. But let's say for the example that they do, they click this link. The target is directed to what looks like LinkedIn, but is an illegitimate version of LinkedIn. And you can see on the attacker's side, from clicking that link, the attacker got the IP address and some information about the browser. And if this user were to type in their username and password and click sign in, that information goes straight to the attacker. Now the attacker has the username and the password. The target gets redirected to the real LinkedIn, and the attacker can then move on to the next phase of their attack. Very little effort on their part to make that happen. So now if we introduce BlackFog to this machine, BlackFog is now running on the device, and the attacker is going through the exact same scenario. They send the link, and when the user makes a mistake and they click that link, that outbound request tries to connect to fake LinkedIn, And you see that notification, threat detection, BlackFog identified that was an illegitimate site, and we block it immediately. We block it automatically. Nothing loads for the end user. And on the attacker's side, we see waiting for victim to open link. The attacker never got the verification that their target clicked on the link. So they can sit there waiting forever for that information to come through, and it's never going to. So obviously, this is just one example of a way an attack might go, but hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity for what BlackFog is doing and some of the value that we're providing. But let's say the attackers have already gotten in. Maybe they're at a later phase of the attack and they've infected a device. This is going to be a post-infection example. So, and I'll skip part of the first part of this. This is really just talking about ChatGPT and how easy it is for attackers to generate code that can be incorporated into a data exfiltration attack. So if I am very straightforward with my prompt and I say, give me a data exfiltration attack, it's not going to do that. It will tell me that's illegal and to please not do anything illegal. But if I'm very wordy with my prompt and I ask in a very specific way, it's not very difficult to get ChatGPT to print out code that I could then incorporate into an attack as demonstrated here. So now going back into the attack example, we can see same format as before, the attacker on the left, target on the right. This target has been infected by this attack. This attack is dwelling in the background, slowly sending data back to the attacker. For the sake of the example, the data happen to be, these are images of my dog, because we're not using the content of the data to classify what should be blocked and what shouldn't. We don't want any of your data going to the attacker. We're using the behavior of the network traffic to identify if something should be blocked or not. At any rate, this target is infected. They may be infected for weeks or even months. They can go about their business as usual, using their machine. Nothing appears to be wrong. But on the attacker's point of view, you can see they're getting a steady stream of data coming through. The attacker has effectively done everything right, and now it's the waiting game. They're going to get as much data as they can before they engage you in a conversation. So now if we introduce BlackFog to this machine, we're going to go through the software deployment. It's a very easy tool to deploy. What we're seeing right now is just the single-use installation wizard, but this can also be pushed out to many devices at once very easily. And as we're going through this installation, what we're going to see is as soon as BlackFog turns on, we can go ahead and click Finish, launch BlackFog without any further configuration needed, just in its default settings. You see that notification, threat detection. We identify that unauthorized background communication. We block it immediately and we block it automatically. So the attacker got 18 files before BlackFog was installed, but no more data is coming through. And you see that notification again, because this device is still infected. It's still trying to exfiltrate data, but every time it tries to do so, we block it. We stop it immediately and we stop it automatically. So this is where BlackFog is an excellent complementary solution to a lot of the more conventional security implements, like an antivirus in this example. This is where you would then go to your antivirus, do a scan of this machine, find that infection, clean it, get it back up and running. But with BlackFog in place, you have time to plan that response and execute that response without worrying that you're losing data in the meantime. We're cutting off that connection back to the attacker. They no longer have any visibility into the environment. They're not able to get any data out. And this is where they're very likely to move to the next target on their list. Rather, they could, if they wanted to, go back to ChatGPT, try to generate another variation of the attack and get it working again. But it's a lot less effort on their part to just move on to the next target on their list. If they had a system and it was working, better to continue using that system. It's just not working against you for some reason. They don't know it's because of BlackFog this stopped working. All they know is the data stopped coming in. At which point, once they move on, your environment is safe. And what we see very commonly in situations like this, where we're deployed in an environment where there's already an infection present, is at first a very high number of blockings. The attackers are trying to pull that data out. And then the number goes way down because they gave up. They're no longer trying because they're not getting anything. And so, which has many benefits, right? It's a lot less resource intensive for all security applications when the attackers are no longer knocking on your door. It's just kind of one of the upstream benefits of BlackFog. Again, this is just one attack example of thousands of different ways this might go. But hopefully this gives some visibility about what we're all about, stopping the attackers from getting your data in the first place. So at this point, jumping back into the slideshow, there's really not a lot left here. Really, the end of this is just talking about that data exfiltration and outbound network security is really something that a lot of companies are focusing on now and do not have the confidence that they can protect against with their current security offerings. And this is everything that we do is fill in that gap and protect all of your outbound network traffic. So at this point, would love to open up the conversation. If there are any questions, where we do have a few stories that we can share here at the end, but would love to address if anything that we've talked about, prompts any questions or any use cases. We would love to hear those at this point.
Nolan and Doug, I have a few that were emailed to me. What impact does the BlackFog agent have on system performance? I think you already went through this, but
it's a very minimal impact. So we're typically around 15 megabytes in memory, less than 1% CPU utilization. So we can run on very low end systems. We can also run alongside very resource intensive applications that may also be running on that machine. It's really never been an issue of if BlackFog can fit on that machine. It's a very light footprint.
And actually, I'll add a little bit to that. We've heard from so many customers that some of our customers overseas, they pay for their internet by the byte, it's a consumption model versus the US all you can eat type model. But point is, we heard from so many customers overseas that their internet bills had gone down like 30 to 35% after they had deployed BlackFog. So we actually commissioned a 1 month study, and it was factual. It's like 34.8% reduction in internet traffic. And why that happens is because BlackFog stops so much of the back end garbage traffic, not a very technical term there, but the crap that the bad guys are trying to throw at you from every site that you visit. You don't even have to click on anything. You go to any of your sporting sites, your news sites, any website out there has these types of traffic activities on the back end. They're web profilers, web advertisers, data scrapers. They're trying to steal your information and build profiles on who you are, what you like, what you do. And that helps them then infiltrate you and build a packet for you to put up for sale on the dark web. But so we've seen that a considerable, reduction in the internet, which also is, speeds up your users, your employees' activities. So I think that's a good example, a good benefit. So good question, Natalie, whoever asked it.
yeah. I have another. Are remote workers more susceptible to being infected?
I'll take that one.
That's a good question.
It is a good question. I'll take that one and say yes. I think they really are. They have left they've left the security and the comfort of the office, where all the prior security tools used to be completely focused around, was all network based, and it was all held in one big bucket. And that was a big thing that we saw the change from COVID. Everybody was dispersed workforce and sent home, and the bad guys took advantage of it. They would start looking for weak spots on the internet and showing people using insecure routers and things like that. And yes, they definitely have become a target of the bad guys. And it's also there's another aspect to that. And we always coach and counsel our clients and our partners on this, is that, we strongly recommend that you protect any and all devices that are accessing company data. The reason for that is that just like that story that I told at the onset where the company was going to a nearby Chinese restaurant, the bad guys are looking for any employees or anybody using insecure routers, insecure devices, and they have these tools that scour social media and look for these types of this type of information, and that allows them to attack you at home, which then can allow them access to your network, your work network. Just like going back to the Target breach, it was a small 2-person heating and cooling shop, and that was where the entire weakness was. That was the entry point. That's all they're looking for, is an entry point. So I would say definitely yes. Great question, but yes.
And then the last question I got, what are the next steps? How do I get set up with BlackFog?
So Nolan, if you scroll down to the last slide, it'll have the ComSat's contact information on there.
There we go.
There you go. So yeah, work with your team members from ComSat, and then their main contact is listed here. And then they can walk you through the next steps as far as, and then because they are a full service, provider for us for BlackFog, and they'll be able to help you as far as implementation and identifying what you need to install it on, which again is everything. But look at your network, look at your environment, see what you have, where your risks are, and the team at ComSat will do a great job of that. So I have a couple of really quick stories. I think we have time. It's 20 minutes to the hour.
Yeah.
If there's not any questions. These are just some more really recent things that BlackFog has stopped. So we had one in the past, I'll say it's been 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. So within the past month, a customer, um, regulated industry, critical infrastructure industry here in the US. And on a regular call with that customer, our hunt team were going through their blockings and looking at their blockings. And there was a half a dozen devices that had these blockings that none of us had ever seen before, but get looking at it further. And it was literally a JPEG, so a photograph of a logo that was popping up on these employees' screens. And it was a logo from a Chinese company, and none of the employees, the company, pulled all the employees. None of the employees admitted to clicking on it, so they didn't click on it. A couple of them didn't even remember seeing it. But the point was that the attack packet was hidden in that logo, and it was literally just a very innocent, mindless logo that popped up on their screen. And that's where the attack packet was. And all 6 devices, BlackFog stopped the data exfiltration because when that logo showed up, it had the attack packet in it, and it was trying to take their data back to China. So a super good example, really powerful. Another quick story, and this is an Eastern US manufacturing company. They are a one shift a day shop. They're closed on weekends. And as we can all imagine, the bad guys like to attack on holidays and weekends because they know most shops are closed, or a lot of shops are closed. Well, during one of their regular reviews of their blockings, they had one of their servers that they had to leave running just for business purposes. And it had been attacked on Saturday night over 1 million times in one instance. So it attacked them over 1 million times without stopping, and BlackFog stopped all million. And then the bad guys left and went away and never came back. But that's a real powerful example. I mean, most other cyber tools are going to become overwhelmed with that type of a massive attack. And that's why the bad guys use this. And we know there had to be some type of AI or machine learning tool driving that attack to be able to rapid fire 1 million attacks at them. So, and the neat thing was that the company, they didn't have a clue that it had even happened because they had no impact, and nothing stopped or slowed down. And when they came back in on Monday morning, everything looked fine until we talked to them like a week later on one of their reviews. So, yeah. So I think that's a good summary for everybody. If anybody has any last minute questions, please forward them through your contacts at American Laser Comsat. And we appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to join us today. And hopefully this has been really helpful, and look forward to having you guys on as a customer.
Great. All
All
right.
right.
So thank you, Doug and Nolan. That was
All right.
very informative. And everyone, have a good day. Please reach out to Larry Williamson at lwilliamson@comsat.net if you have any questions. And like Doug said, we look forward to hearing from all of you. All right. Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.